the word to them. So, Mr. Speaker, my qualifications, academic qualifications, my experience as a member of parliament and as a leader in this country, been indicted in adversely in any report of parliament. I have always had clearance from the criminal justice system, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the DCI. I have never violated Chapter 6 of the Constitution, never violated Article 75 of the Constitution, and I think I am ready and willing to serve the people of Kenya in the docket of environment, climate change, and forestry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Duale. We'll now start off with members asking you some questions. Try to be concise and precise in the answers in the interest of time. We'll start with the Deputy Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Duale, you will recall that during COP27, the President made it clear that Kenya's biggest export would be carbon credits, and asked for a simple and transparent system of ensuring that people can access these market systems, and not just the intermediaries, but also down to the local people. If approved, how are you going to ensure that this carbon trading trickles down right to the small communities? And in connection to that, on the 22nd of December 2022, the government launched the African Landscape Restoration Initiative. It pledged to the world that it would plant 15 billion trees by 2032. That is 15 billion trees in 10 years. That, if my calculation is correct, it's 4 million trees a day. If approved, what measures will you put in place to ensure that you don't let down the president and achieve this ambitious project? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Carbon credit, carbon markets, carbon trading, carbon offsets. These are very key fundamental terminologies within the reading of the climate change. And this August House, Mr. Speaker, last year amended the Climate Change Act. To be more precise, in September, just before we had the Africa Climate Summit. Two, our president is currently the chairman of heads of state and government of the Climate Summit in Africa. Carbon credit or carbon market is very, very important to our communities. Our communities, mainly in the ASAL, play a very, very big role. Companies abroad in the developed world who are responsible for the emission of the greenhouse gas, which in our case, our contribution is only 0.3%. While we only contribute 0.3%, on the flip side, we are the biggest victims, we're the vulnerables. So these companies, whether they're in the oil exploration, whether they're in the airline industry, they pollute the outer atmosphere. And they get involved in carbon trading and carbon market. Carbon market is just where you provide a mechanism, an infrastructure where both the private and the public sector engage in that. So to the question of Honorable Deputy Speaker, that amendment that this House did created a very robust legislation where the role of the community, particularly in land carbon projects. And I'll give an example in the northern Kenya, the so-called Northern Rangeland Trust. Before communities were evicted from those lands, before this law, there was cultural disruption by these project proponents. Before this law, because there was a lacuna, there was no even register for the carbon markets. Today, I want to report that the law this House has passed give communities 40% of whatever carbon markets resources are received from the developed world. Today, NEMA as an organization is a custodian of the register. A company cannot just come into our country and go to our forested areas, can go to our rangelands and enter into an agreement with the project implementers. The community has a role, the community has a percentage, and even in that same amendment law, you created the element of the offenses. That today in our country, if you commit certain crimes, even money laundering in carbon credit business, falsification, not involving the communities, then you need to have to play. So I want to assure, if this committee approves me, that my mantra will be public participation, public consultation at the community level. Communities will have a role. On the second most important element is the restoration program that has been started by the President of the Republic of Kenya in December, where we said we must restore our rangelands, where we are going to plant 15 billion trees, restore also our forest, because currently our forest cover is 12.13%. And we anticipate that by 2032, we must reach 30%, from 12.1 to 30% forest cover. Tree cover. Our forest cover, as of now, is about 8.83%. So, Mr. Speaker, a number of strategies has been put in place so far to give the status. So far, we have done 400 million trees out of the 15 billion. That is not a very good indicator. I think we're not doing very well. And I want to do a number of things if this committee approves me. Number one, and it has happened in other countries like Ethiopia, it can't be a trickle down. The restoration program, the planting of trees, must be a bottom-up approach. The communities must own it. It must be citizen-driven. And we must mix it with a situation where 10 to 15% of the trees we are going to plant must be fruit trees, that communities see the value, that as you plant trees, they also plant mango, they plant many, many other fruit trees that will entice our communities at the rural sections of our society. Two, this program requires serious resource mobilization. So there will be a resource mobilization both by government, by donors, by the private sector. Thirdly, and most important, we must preserve the current forest that we have. We need to do 11 million kilometers of fence of all the forests that we have in our country. Thirdly, the private sector must be given a space. Private sector, where the corporates have a role in all their strategic partners, whether it's Safaricom, whether it's the banks, that every section of our degraded forest area, a certain private sector person is given to, and they can use it even to rebrand it and even own it. So, Mr. Speaker, communities play a very big role, and I am sure right now as we speak, 4 ministries are leading: the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Environment. There are 3 ministries which are at the bottom, including the Ministry of Agriculture. If this committee approves me, Mr. Speaker and honorable committee members, I think this is a game changer. On the flip side of it, Mr. Speaker, that again will be linked to the carbon credit. A lot of resources will come to our country, because the more we restore our forest, the more we'll play a role in the reduction of the emissions, the greenhouse emissions. So on one side, it's good for our country. We will increase our forest cover. It's in the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, let me say it. In our preamble, Article 4 of our preamble talks about the environment. We must preserve our environment. It's our heritage. So it is, it's not even an article of the Constitution. It is in the 4th preamble of our Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. In the next questions, Honorable Duale tried to hit pointed answers. That was a good introduction to what is actually the epicenter of your ministry. I'll now ask the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe just to start with a clarification, Honorable Duale, you said you work with corporates to restore degraded forest and own it. I hope you said you don't mean to transfer ownership to the corporates. I hope it's to own the work.
And they can use it for branding.
Thank you. I don't want to repeat what you've said, because you've, as the Speaker said, you've really taken care of the carbon credits issue. But even as you do that work, Honorable Duale, you know, we have very many petitions in Parliament on degazetted forests and forests that are grabbed. I would want to hear how you intend to work with Parliament, especially in dealing with all those issues, land issues around degazettement, encroachment of forests, and outright land grabbing of forested areas. Case in point, I'm aware, I know, and I don't know if you may be aware of the Ololua forest matter just outside Nairobi, and what you would intend to do to reclaim all this grabbed forest land.
Mr. Speaker, when I look at the ministry and even Parliament, there are a number of petitions touching on forest, grabbed land of the forest, part of the forest they put under use either for agriculture, for even government offices across the country. And the history of forest being grabbed, being encroached, is as old as the Republic of Kenya. In my entire life in Parliament, from the Mao forest, when the Honorable late Michuki was the Minister for Environment, it's a recurring thing. And what I want to intend, if this House approves me, Mr. Speaker, is first to consolidate all those petitions. Some are genuine, some are out of fraud. Generally deliver a cabinet memo, and the cabinet, the highest decision-making organ of our country, can make a decision on this matter. All the petitions, the ones dealt with the Parliament, the ones which have not been dealt. Coming specifically to Ololua, Mr. Speaker, I want to categorically, without fear of contradiction, say that if this House approves me, in the first 30 days, working with the Minister for Lands and other government agencies, a number of titles, including and belonging to big people in government, some of them members of Parliament, will be revoked. I will revoke those and I am ready to bear the consequences, particularly for the one on Ololua. I have been briefed, I have listened to experts, and I have seen it's deliberate. In the last 2 years, there are people who got illegal title deeds, and I think it will be the first place I will visit, and also with the Committee on Environment, and I hope the chair is a member of this committee, my chair. We will visit, and please, Mr. Speaker, some of your members might be casualties.
No problem. If you do what is right, we will support you. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, is that to say the CS nominee actually knows the grabbers of Ololua Forest? Because he has claimed they are senior government officers, including members of parliament. I hope he's not referring to me since I asked the question.
Mr. Speaker, I am the nominee for the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry. So if this House approves me, forestry will be my business. Grabbers of forest land will be my business. Whoever they are, whatever their status is in society. Mr. Speaker, if I just to say it, and I think for record, let me say it. With the last 2 years when I was at the Ministry of Defense, and I had the privilege to serve as a member of the National Security Council, and you served as a member of the Security Council when you're Minister of Foreign Affairs. If today I'm asked between Al-Shabaab and corruption, which is a threat to the national security of Kenya, without fear of contradiction, I say corruption is more of a threat to our security and our existence than Al-Shabaab, because Al-Shabaab, you can identify, you know their location, you know their capability, but corruption is the one that is killing our country. So, as I go to environment, from NEMA to forestry, at least, if you are hearing me and you sit here or you are somewhere and you have allocated yourself illegally some forest land, be warned if this committee approves me.
Junet?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have 2 questions for the nominee. One is, first, it is one of which is on him, one of the nominees that have come here, Mr. Speaker, and he said, if you approve me, I am carrying an axe on with my hand. I'm going to deal with people. This is very good, because many people fear to give you a position. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, what do you think? One issue. What does he think is one issue, environmental issue of high consequence that the country should focus on? That you think, as a country, we should focus on this one environmental issue. Secondly, the government pronounced and said that they want to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. Is that achievable in your view? What do you think? What will be the criteria of achieving that? And lastly, you see, Mr. Speaker, we are now in a public forum. The public is listening to us. And the nominee, whom I know very well, who was our majority leader for many years, whom we found in Parliament, is somebody who does not mince his words, somebody who speaks his mind. He said that there are people who have grabbed land, especially the Lua Forest, and they are public people. There are some of them in high government offices and others even in Parliament. Could he share with us who those people could be, so that we also know that maybe where we are sleeping is maybe not a forest? Maybe some of us are living inside a forest, Mr. Speaker, so we can start packing before he's approved.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Junet has asked me 3 questions. The first question was, what is this one thing that is serious and a threat to our environment? Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, environment, the place of environment is in our preamble of the Constitution. environment has been cited in Article 42 of the Constitution, that every Kenyan has a right to secure and clean environment. Article 69 of the Constitution talks about citizen rights on environmental issues. And even Article 70, Mr. Speaker, it is very explicit that if the state or any other actors violate the environmental rights of citizens, it says they can go to a court of law. So public participation, stakeholder engagement, citizens' right is very key to environment. But with these rights to the environment comes with responsibility. All of us have a responsibility to protect and preserve our heritage, which is our environment. Three critical things, Honorable Junet, that we are facing as a country. We are facing pollution, very serious, both air and water. We have serious pollution. I am sure some of the members and the citizens listening to me, our air is polluted by industries, by noise pollution. Then you come to our rivers. Our rivers, our oceans are polluted. Mr. Speaker, the three rivers that originate from Honorable Ichungwa's constituency, it's called the Ondiri Swamp. By the time, because of the sewage and all the other things that they pass through, the Athi, the Madare, the Ngong rivers, is completely polluted. The second thing, Honorable Junet, is our biodiversity. Our biodiversity.
But from Dagoretti, the origin is very clean.
Yes. Yes, Honorable. Thank you for that information. Yeah, the origin is clean, but it's very subjective, so we need to go with you and check. So biodiversity. A lot of the biodiversity, whether big, small, our heritage, are finishing. How are they finished? Through agriculture. Even the small insects, through agriculture, through road constructions. You know, infrastructure is a big threat. And then the most now I can pick it, Honorable Junet, is how we manage our waste. The waste management in our country and in our counties is in very dire situation. The law has been passed by this House. MCA of 1999, various amendments, even the coding of our waste. It's a household responsibility. Honorable Deputy Speaker, for example, if I pick her, in her own house, she's supposed to have 2 different coded bags, one for the wet waste and one for the dry waste. The person picking it is supposed to have 2 different trucks. When it goes to Dandora's site, it's supposed to have where he can deliver the dry, where it can be recycled, and where he can deliver the organic, where it can be used for fertilizer and many, many things. So those 3 issues, and also the waste management, I think is something that I will maybe later explain we must deal with. The 15 billion tree planting, Ethiopia did 30 billion. Ethiopia is a country that we can be proud of, we can learn a lot. I am ready to go to Ethiopia. I'm ready to walk the talk, help the president, talk to citizens, use leaders who are here. Leaders, stakeholders are very, very important. These tree planting, members of parliament are very, very important. It's not about taking a chopper, planting few trees, you don't know who takes care about them. In fact, the problem is, it's not about, it's planting and then making sure the tree grow. So there is planting and growing. So members of parliament, all of us, the private sector, the public sector, the communities at home will help us.
Thank you. This time around, I'll start with Miss Caleb. I've been petitioned by Mishi and Mukami that I change tact in who speaks first. You guys will be the last this time.
Mr. Speaker, they didn't consult me. Now you've got me off guard, but it's okay.
Give it to Mukami then.
No, I will, Speaker.
And
thank you.
ask, in the interest of time, ask one question, get one answer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll ask one question because I was trying to prepare the second one. If I get a chance, later I will. There is a major conference happening in November in Azerbaijan and Baku. Do you know the conference, the name, the history, and how Kenya can tap into such global climate conferences in the fight for climate change?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the 29th conference of parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, which is known as COP29, will be held in Baku in Azerbaijan between the 11th and 22nd of November this year, inshallah. And Mr. Speaker, on the 11th is the first day for the heads of state and government to have their meeting, and then the next, on the 13th, will be the World Leaders Conference on Climate Change. What are the top priorities that this conference will come up with? One, this conference is supposed to deal with the adaptation of what they call the new collective qualified goal for climate financing. Climate financing has just been a talk show from COP15 in Copenhagen to all the time COP28 in Dubai. So this time we're saying, people are saying we must adopt a proper financing model. The epicenter of climate change and climate adaptation and climate mitigation is around climate financing. So that will be a discussion. That in Copenhagen, which was, I think, COP15, people pledged 100 billion US dollars. Up to now, I think nothing has been given. But for Africa and for Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we are taking the carbon credit issue. This carbon credit issue must be concluded. And again, thirdly, the finalization of the operationalization of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which defines carbon market, is what I think Kenya, led by President Ruto, and all of us, and Africa, we will take it to the table that let us not have a talk show. The UN meetings must come with clear, achievable, clear, deliverable for fighting climate mitigation and climate adaptation.
Mukami.
Speaker, with your permission, kindly, I request to finish the other question with your kind permission. Thank you, because I had to, but it's a privilege of being the first. Thank you, Speaker. I just want to know where the nominee came from, the Military of Defense, because I happen to have served in the Committee of Defense and interacted with the ministry a lot. There is something peculiar that happened that I've not seen, where the public officers use defense choppers, military choppers, and the military artillery to move around the country, putting the risk of the defense and of course the officers. In fact, in the public domain, it can be true or not true, which if not true, I will withdraw, is that the military has feared you. You have become more military than the military themselves. Is it true, and why did the military fear you?
I don't think the military fear me, but you have put many things. I don't know, you talked about choppers, and then you brought the issue of fear. So are you saying I fear going by military choppers?
No, I said I've never seen other public officers, other than the president, who is the commander-in-chief, used in military choppers to move around the country, and other members of the public office who are not in the military. And also, there is a word.
Are you talking of civilians? Because military officers are also public officers.
Yeah, like when like the deputy president, like the ministers. This is something that I've never seen for us sometime. So I wanted just him to clarify whether also deputy president is allowed to use military choppers, or was it misuse of power in your, because it's something that I've never seen with the previous ministers.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, let me say it because it gave me a lot of bad publicity. But when you serve in a public office, that's part of life. Within the reading and the instruction of the Commander-in-Chief, at the Ministry of Defense, the Commander-in-Chief is the President. The President and the First Lady are the people allowed to use military air assets with a rider. If the Commander-in-Chief allows the Speaker of the National Assembly to be airlifted from Nairobi to Bungoma, that is in order, but with the concurrence of the Commander-in-Chief. I don't know, I don't think the rank and the file and the leadership of the Defense Ministry fear me. Maybe my style. And I'll take the same style to Forest. I'll take the same style. I had the same style in Parliament.
We have no evidence that they fear you. Mukami?
Thank you, Chair. Given the recent concerns about the government directives on grazing within the forest foresters are really harassing the communities. What are the long-term plans for collaborating with communities living near the forests? The other one is about the floods. Recently, the country experienced floods that left many stranded on account of ineffective rescue operations. If approved, how best would you collaborate with the relevant agencies to ensure rapid rescue operations during such incidents? Thank you.
Hold it, Duale. Mishi, let's take 2-2.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, before I raise my questions, I just want to ask the nominee just to clear some airs for the benefit of the public, because when His Excellency the President pronounced the list of the nominee, he was given the defense docket. But when the list came to the Parliament, he was under the environment, climate and forestry docket. So Kenyans are asking, is it maybe the President was doubting his ability and leadership capacity, or what was the reason? I just want him maybe to clear the murmurs by the public. My questions. My first question, in accordance with the fourth schedule.
Ask one, Mishi, so ask only another.
Yeah, in accordance with the fourth schedule of the Constitution, environmental conservation is a function of both the national and the county government. How are you going to ensure collaboration between those two governments, that is the national and the county government, so that you also avoid duplication of programs in terms of the same function? The last one, maybe it is how are you going to improve and maybe safeguard those Kenyans who are living or are located near the refinery and chemical plants, because there's a lot of pollution. Thank you.
Yes, nominee.
Chair, let me start with the Honorable Mishi. Even after this, in the event this committee approves me, and before even I'm appointed, the President has a prerogative right to assign me even another ministry. So he might even take me from environment to somewhere else if this committee approves me. So Honorable Mishi, that is the powers of the President. After all of us are approved, in 1 week he can reshuffle, and maybe he might even take me back to defense, or foreign affairs, or even gender, or even youth affairs and sports. And I am ready, or education. I am ready to serve in any capacity that the President finds it deems it's right. The second one, I think, is a very good question. Environmental matters is devolved under the 4th schedule. And at the county level, we have a very good relationship. We have got the county environmental committees appointed by the governors. The chair, on behalf of the governor, is the CEC for environment. The secretary is our county director of NEMA. And that's how they work together with all the other multi-agency team. But soon, if this committee appoints me, we are trying to create now, and we hope if this committee appoints me, we are going to sign a more intergovernmental environmental framework between the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry and the Council of Governors, where I will sign and the chair of the Council of Governors will sign. On grazing, Honorable Nyokapi, this is a very, very complex issue.
Honorable
Mukami, my very good friend, the women rep of Nyeri County. Under the Forestry Act, we have created a very robust, because we cannot conserve, we cannot restore, we cannot manage our forest and our wetlands without the involvement of the communities and the citizens who live around those forests. So this house, in its wisdom in lawmaking, they created something called Community Forest Association. And these community forest associations are the ones who are supposed to guide at what part of the forest do people graze? How far do they graze? Do they graze where we have doing regeneration of the forest? So what are we doing to make sure that we don't have a conflict? And Mr. Speaker, in some of the forests, unfortunately, powerful people in government, in the private sector, who own thousands of livestock, graze in those forests. I'm sorry to say that. But if this House approves me and I become the minister, I want to do some key long-term plans. One, just to have to review the whole grazing management plans, how we can regulate the authorized grazing in our forest ecosystem, how we can fence off areas where we feel are very sensitive in the forest, that we don't allow our animals or our farmers to farm. And lastly, I think the forest community management regulation of 2016 has not been operationalized, and I'm going to operationalize with the approval of this House, because that will give them the rights. Mr. Speaker, the second question of Honorable Mukami, I didn't get it. If you can repeat it. Oh, yeah, it was about the floods. Yes. Mr. Speaker, climate change today is the biggest threat to humanity. I mean, you can see what's happening in India and Ethiopia in the last 1 week. Thousands of people have died because of the mudslide. You have seen the wildfires in California. You have seen the hurricanes, what they're doing, kind of destruction. And coming back home, the last 2 years, we had a severe drought that killed many livestock, affected our farmers, affected food security, destroyed, and then next after the drought, we had the floods, which again affected livelihoods, destroyed our infrastructure, roads, and farms, and livestock was swept away. So, and that's why, because of the climate change and all this, one of the issues why we're having 15 billion trees is to recover our forest ecosystem, restoration, regeneration, bring back our biodiversity. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I have tried to answer the questions of...
Honorable Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
Part of my question was not answered. Chairman, I was asking this question: how do we improve the health of communities which are living near a polluted site? I'm asking this because in my constituency, there is a plant built by Titanium Base who are doing some mining in Kwale, and there's no mitigation which has been done, and it's a residential area. That is why I was asking that question specifically.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I forgot to answer that question. Let me answer it. It's not only in Likoni, Mr. Speaker, we have a serious problem between how county governments enforce their physical planning and zoning of areas and the role of environmental institutions in making sure that zoning is respected. Mr. Speaker, even here in Nairobi, you'll find county governments with no regard to the law, to the Physical Planning Act, allowing industry and factories to be established in residential areas and bars and bring noise pollution. The same, you cannot have a refinery next to a residential area. The laws, the environmental laws, the Physical Planning Act, the Land Use Act, all those don't allow it. So, Mheshimiwa Mishi, this is because of corruption. And Mr. Speaker, that's why you see even skyscrapers are appearing next to each other, buildings which has no ventilation, they have no air, there's no sand, particularly in this cold weather of July. Your children will live in an apartment, they will never see the sun, they'll never get the fresh air. So all this, Mr. Speaker, if I am confirmed, I want to assure this House, and governors must listen to me, and we are going to do an audit. NEMA is going to do an audit of all factories and industries which are established in residential areas, and we will revoke their licenses. There must be order. There must be respect for environment as we build our country.